Hello and welcome to the York Creators Podcast. My name is Ben Porter, and each week you can join me as I chat to someone from York's creative community. This week's guest is Clinton Lofthouse. Clinton is a photographer and digital artist. He's worked with clients such as Hollywood movie director Eli Roths, Crypt TV, Nike and Liam Payne. He solves visual problems for clients all around the globe. In this episode we discuss Clinton's route into the industry, trying out multiple creative pursuits before finding his groove with photography and digital art. We chat about the difference between conceptual and commercial work, the things he wished he knew when he was getting started, and why he believes that building creative communities is the future of getting paid to do creative work. Clinton, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, appreciate you having me.
So in preparation for this I was doing a bit of research and I was having a look through some of your social media accounts, and I found a post from a few days ago which said, out of all of the decades that people are nostalgic about, the one you have the most affinity for is the 80s.
Yeah, definitely.
Can you explain that a bit, why you picked that decade?
I don't know, obviously I was born in 82, so I'm an 80s baby. But my main childhood was probably the 90s, but the 80s for me, I've just got some kind of connection with it. And the movies, obviously, I grew up watching like Goonies and Back to the Future, and I could list loads, Labyrinth and all those kind of movies. And then the music, I used to like the synth in the music. So if there was a rock band like a couple of years ago, like a decade ago, what had synth in it, I would always be down with like a little bit of synth in the rock music. And then I never really used to like the pop music, but I've kind of grown to like that as well. Because now I have Spotify, I just put like an 80s playlist on repeat, and it just keeps playing over and over. So even my son is singing like Rick Astley, Never Gonna Give You Up. No. But yeah, I think, I don't know, have you heard of Synthwave?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big Synthwave fan.
Okay, nice.
So I think that as well as kind of, I've been listening to a lot of that recently, so I think it's all just coming to overblown then with all the kind of love for the 80s, and it just, I think when you're a kid you always look back and think times were good back then, even though there probably wasn't. Like in the 80s were all nearly the end of the world, wasn't it?
Well, they did what they did very well was making everything big and colourful and neon and stuff like that. And the reason I ask this is you can see elements of those in your work, so with the neon and the grungy textures and things like that. So do you want to explain a bit about what your work is for people who don't haven't seen what you do?
I mean, actually it's quite... So I did start off as a kind of a conceptual photographer, and then I went into fantasy. I went through loads of different genres, I think, and then every time I went into a different genre, I'd take little bits of that and then bring it into my new work. But at the minute, I would say I am a conceptual photo manipulator who also does commercial work. So a lot of the time, people do the conceptual work and then they find it hard to move into the commercial world. Whereas I kind of looked at other people and thought, well, they are doing good in this respect, but they don't seem to be doing very well commercially. I was thinking, well, why is this? And then when I looked at all the different commercial agencies and things like that, I could see that things were a little bit more toned down. So I just learned, well, for exposure and good for social media, like the crazy stuff is good for that. But then when you're doing client work or commercial work, you just need to tone it down a little bit and not scare people off.
So for someone who has no idea about the industry, can you explain the difference between conceptual and commercial? What do you mean? So
conceptual basically can be anything. So it can be, it could be genre work, so it could be sci-fi work, it could be fantasy work, it could be... It's basically anything what you want to create, so it could be very personal artwork. Whereas commercial work is usually when you create work for a client, so someone's paying you to do that. And what I found with commercial work is that clients always tend to play a little bit safe. So they'll come to you saying, oh, we love this image, and they'll show me which image it is, and it's usually like some kind of synthwave inspired sci-fi piece, and then they'll ask you to create something in like that. So then you create something like that and give it to them, and then they say, well, will you tone this down and will you tone that down?
It's not quite on brand.
Yeah, will you change this? So I kind of got used to that now, yeah.
Okay. And how did you get into all this then? Did you study design, or was it just, are you self-taught?
I'm pretty much self-taught, yeah. So when I was younger, I used to draw, cut my own comic books, I used to write stories. So I was quite creative as a younger boy. My granddad was an artist. He wasn't famous or anything like that, but he used to draw and paint, and he used to teach me. I used to spend a lot of time at my granddad's, and he used to teach me about people like Picasso and Van Gogh and all the great artists. So he'd get his books out and he'd tell me like a little bit of the history, and then he'd show me the paintings. So it was a big influence in that respect. So I used to be very artistic, and then obviously as I grew up, I got to a teenager. Then I went out drinking a lot and did all the usual teenage things. So I didn't do anything creative at all for a long time. And then I think once I kind of got out of the going out all the time and drinking a lot, I had an urge to create, but I couldn't draw anymore. So I went through phases of like, right, I can't draw, so what else is creative, what I can do? So I went back to story writing, and then you just get stuck in your head too much with story writing. So I would spend like an hour on one sentence going backwards and forwards trying to make this sentence perfect. So that was too much for me. So then I went into trying to sketch with charcoal. Okay, cool. which it was all right, but I wasn't very good at it.
So how long ago was this roughly when you were doing that?
So I was just got to about 30 years old. Mm-hmm. So I did spend quite a lot of time drinking and going out from my teenage years. And then, one day I was just on the internet, and I was just looking through other people's art, and I came across a photography website. I can't remember which one it was now. And there were these landscapes, and it looked like someone had painted these landscapes, but they just took it with a camera. So I thought, all right, this might be something I can do. So I just got myself a cheap DSLR. I think it was a Nikon D3100. And basically bought that. And then once I bought that, everything kind of spiraled out of control. I bought Photoshop. And then I took to photography and Photoshop quite quickly. Because when I get into something, I usually get a little bit of an obsession. So every night I was like, on Photoshop, and then at the weekends and after work I was taking photos with a camera. And then within a year I'd already had something published in like a magazine.
Nice.
And then I started building up a bit of a following on social media, and just kind of took it from there. But I went through loads of different genres before I got to actually something that kind of worked for me. So I started off tried landscape, was very bad at landscape. You have to get up very early. At that point in my life, I didn't get up early. So I always used to take photos around midday, and they always look crap. So I was like, I don't understand why
the sun's too hard.
I don't understand why this isn't working. Theirs looks beautiful, and then mine's got all these harsh shadows. So I went from that to urbex, which is abandoned buildings. So I did a couple of years that kind of trespassing in abandoned asylums and old paper factories. I also did a little bit of HDR, very badly. And then I went from that to more dark art photography. And then I went into shooting with models. And then from models, I went into kind of movie poster work. And every time I went...
So you've done a bit of everything.
And so now I've kind of just base it as photo manipulation and commercial work. Mm-hmm. Now leaning towards brand and advertising.
Okay. So when did you come to York then?
So I came to York, it must be just under 2 years ago now.
Mm-hmm. And what was it that brought you here?
I always loved York. My nan and granddad would bring me when I was younger. And I always remember the dungeons, but not like it is now. Before it had human people in. Okay. It was basically the kind of like statues that moved and made noises. And then I would come with my family at Christmas, and we would go around to the Minster and listen to the carols. And I think, because I like history, so I was always, every time I came, I always thought, I would love to live here. And then when I got my camera, I would come and shoot on the weekends, and I would shoot the old buildings. I think it was just one place. You could tell it was very creative, and there was always something going on. So I kind of decided once I don't have a day job anymore and I'm working full time, I will probably move here. And then once I did within a few weeks, I think.
Okay, nice.
I'm quite a proactive person.
Yeah, well, that's good. I mean, you obviously need quite a lot of that, because not everybody's blessed with that sort of drive. Yeah. You speak to some people and you can tell they've got these massive dreams that they want to go for, but they can't, get the wheel turning.
I think sometimes, I learn later on in life that you just need to, if you're going to do something, you have to put something into action straight away. Even like if you've got a goal, you don't just write the goal down, write it down, and then do something to just start that movement forwards. Yeah.
Do you ever get, because I'm like that too, but then sometimes like I put too many things in motion, it's like, oh, what is going on? And then like you get the opposite of that, which is burnout. It's like, oh, I need to scale it baback. Like, have you come across that?
I did go through burnout once, which was around 2016. But then I think I got to the point where I got used to managing loads of different things. Because it was kind of like, not everything always pans out like you want it to, and sometimes things don't. So you want something you want to happen doesn't actually happen. So I kind of thought, or realise that if I have like 6 different things going at once, at least 3 of those might not happen, but the other 3 will. So it's kind of just throw as much as you can at the wall, and then something will happen, and then you can carry on moving forwards through the other thing.
Yeah. So do you find if you do find something's working, are you happy to drop other things? Because I think that's maybe where I fall down. It's like I try loads of things, but then I don't like letting them go, and I probably try and spin too many plates when I need to focus on one.
I can quite easily just go, right, I'm done with that now, and then and just focus on what I need to focus on. But then eventually, it all kind of goes out into different routes again. Yeah.
That's all right. So let's talk about like the movie poster stuff. Because you do a really good job at sort of creating these like virtual worlds from all sorts of things. Some of them are photos that you've taken, some of them are images you've kind of grabbed from the internet and put them all together. Do you have like a particular process which you go through it, or is everyone completely different?
If it's for my personal work, then I usually start off with I have a process like a pre-planning and pre-visual process. So I'll usually start off brainstorming ideas, then I'll go through mood boards, I'll do some sketches, even though the sketches are really bad. So it's usually like stick men with maybe labels and a few little kind of scribbles around them. And then I'll keep going through different mood boards, and then I'll create reference boards. So if there's some part of the image that I want to create, which maybe I don't really know how to create it so it looks lifelike. So for example, if I'm creating a snowy scene and I've got lamps in, instead of guessing how the kind of light will hit the snowflakes, what are falling down, I'll just Google snowflakes in lamplight, and then Google will bring loads of them up, and then I put them into a little mood board. So when I'm editing, I can look across at my other monitor and then try and get the light so it looks correct as it would in real life.
Yeah, okay. Because that's something I was always interested to know, because when you watch these tutorials online, they sort of like, how to do this in 20 minutes, and they go, you do this and you push this, and it's like, how do they know how to do that? They've obviously spent longer before.
None of those tutorials are realistic. When I do tutorials now, I try and make them as if like I was just running through in one go. So a lot of people will do it all once, and then they'll go through it all again, and it'll be all perfect, and they don't make any mistakes. Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if you've used Photoshop before, but I've used it for years now, and I'm pretty good at it, but I still make mistakes all the time. Like I'll just press the wrong button by accident, and then the ruler will come up, and then I forget how to put it back down. All those kind of things. So it's not, they make it look perfect on some tutorials, but that's not really how it is. Yeah,
I suppose it's the same with every kind of visual based industry, is you always get rid of the blemishes, don't you? The things that are wrong, whether it's film or photoshopping people's skin, like it's everywhere, isn't it?
I think it kind of does a little bit of disservice to younger people, because then I think it kind of makes them feel like they'll never be able to do it as good as that person does it, when really that person is good, but they're putting it out in a way what looks like it's perfect when it's never perfect. I think art's quite a messy process, even digitally, and even photography, it can be quite messy. It's like some people have this workflow where they go boing, 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 and it looks perfect, and it's never like that. But when you meet these people as well, I've met them before, and when I've worked with them, I can tell like this is nothing like the tutorials what you put out. Yeah.
So you've recently started a YouTube channel and a website to do tutorials and things like that, haven't you?
Yeah.
Do you want to tell me a bit about that?
Yeah. So that's it's called Photomanipulation.com, and it's been put together by a good friend of mine called Dean Samed. So he's kind of the big boss. So he runs a stock company called Neostock, what sells stock photography. And me and Dean have been chatting for years about creating our own YouTube channel and website, which focuses mainly on photo manipulation. Because there is some out there, but it tends when we see the work what they put out, we kind of think, well, it's all right, but I don't think it's at the level what it could be. Mm-hmm. So we always said, right, we'll get together and we'll do it ourselves. And then we've got 3 other people now who we've asked to join as well. So there's I don't know how you pronounce his name. It's Redouane. Okay. He's a young guy from Africa, and he's like for a very young age, his composites are mind blowing. Okay. Like sometimes when he puts one, I'm like, oh, I wonder how he did that. So I'm watching his videos myself just to learn some tricks from him. And then we've got an American called Abby Esparza, who does conceptual kind of dark art photo manipulation. And then we have a guy I think he's from Korea, who does a bit more fantasy-based photo manipulation. And then eventually, once we get the YouTube, once we grow it over a certain amount of subscribers, we're going to maybe bring a couple of other people in as well. Okay, cool. But within the first week, we got 600 and some subscribers. Nice. So, and when we was watching the how-to videos on YouTube about growth, I think a lot of those people struggled to get like 300 within maybe a year. So I think we're doing all right at the minute.
Yeah. Well, you obviously put out quality stuff because this isn't your first time doing tutorials and things, is it? Because I've seen you've been a staff writer at F-Stoppers, that's right, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you've got like your own Facebook community of people you try and pull together.
Yeah.
So it seems community building is quite important to you and the work that you do.
Yeah, well, I think community building is kind of the future of making money with art, especially if you want to sell education, or if you just kind of want to sell any kind of product or service you have. It's all about building a community, because if you don't have anyone to kind of market your product to, or your images to, or whatever it is, then you're not going to really make any money from it. Yeah. And I think, but just by giving away free advice or just giving away your knowledge for free, in the beginning it might be a bit of a longer turnaround money-wise, but in the end I think you're going to win. And
then locally you've been collaborating with Bright Young Things?
I have, yeah.
Do you want to tell me about that?
So I did a talk for Bright Young Things, which was at the beginning of the year, just before COVID, just when when life was good.
So what kind of stuff were you talking to them about?
So it was, because it's mainly younger designers and creatives. I don't know if they're still at college or just got out of college. So I kind of just basically give them as much knowledge as I could really give them myself. Like if I was going to tell my younger self something, what would I tell myself? So I just kind of told them, like, the creative side's important, but I think like the main side, what you should be focusing on is learning how to market yourself and how to be a business, how to get your work seen, and just how to get paid for your work as well. I have a lot of systems what I put in place for email marketing and networking, and just little routines what I do every day, and I was just kind of drilling into them that you have to do these, even though they're boring things. I don't really like doing them, but it's just something you have to do every day, especially if you want to get paid for being creative, because a lot of creatives create amazing work, but then they don't really know how to market that work.
Yeah. So these are things you would have told yourself 10 years ago if you could go back in time and teach yourself?
I wish I could have gone back. I probably could go to college, but if I could go back in time and go to college, I would do business or marketing, because the creative stuff comes quite easily. I think to most creatives, the creative side's quite easy. So if that's the easy part, don't go to college and don't pay all that money to that. Pay the money to do the marketing or the business. And then once you get out, you're fully skilled up then on like marketing yourself or business-wise, and just getting clients, because I think that's the main. Every time I do a talk, the main question is, how do you get clients?
Yeah.
And everyone thinks there's some magic formula, but it's a number of different things what you have to do every day.
Yeah.
Sometimes for months without getting anything back, and then eventually stuff will start to kind of trickle down.
Yeah. And I think it ties into what you were saying before about community building and doing things like in Hewitt and Walker. The thing that got us seen by loads of people was doing that Visit York video.
Yeah, seen it, yeah.
And that was Ollie, my business partner. He did that without being paid or anything. He was just like, I want to do a video that's going to be seen by lots of people. Yeah. Gave his time and energy and effort to make something really, really good. And then it just so happened that York got flooded, and Visit York wanted to use that video, and the two things kind of worked together, and suddenly he had so much work on, and that's why I kind of ended up joining with him. But if he hadn't taken that first step and be like, I want to do something which puts me out there, that probably never would have happened, and both our lives would have been quite different.
Yeah, I think there's a fine line between, like, I say, like, you should do some things for free sometimes, but what you need to do is you kind of need to think about it first. Whereas, like, obviously it went in Ollie's favour, but I think it's just don't let people kind of constantly keep asking for free things from you. Like, I'll do maybe, if I think it's worth it, I'll do something for free, but then I only do it for that person once. If they then come back and start asking for something else, I say, no, because you're going to have to pay this time.
Yeah. Because you can always work it out so that something works in your favour. So, like, for example, at the moment, I'm working on a photography book about creative office spaces in York.
All right.
And I've said to all the people involved, like, they can have all the photos. Yeah. But actually, I'm getting a book out of it. Yeah. And I'm getting experience working on architecture and interior design photography, which I have none of that in my portfolio at the moment. And so once I've done it, if people start asking me for free photography, it's like, no, I've got loads of it already. Like, this is the cost.
I actually had a similar idea earlier, because obviously I like history, and I was walking around and I've seen quite a lot of the old stuff in York, but there's loads of buildings where I always think I'd like to go inside there and just like have a little investigation and start taking some photos, because I actually seen recently it's not a cult. That's going to sound wrong. All those guys what wear robes? Oh, the Masons? Is it Freemasons? Yeah. Have you seen inside the Freemasons building?
No, but it's next to my grand's house.
Well, they've got this big like chamber with all these fancy decorations and things. Yeah, it looks amazing. So I was just thinking, how many other places in York have got all these hidden beautiful rooms inside? So I was thinking maybe if I get my camera, I can kind of just say, look, if you let me come in and take some photos, I'll let you keep the photos, but then I can use them for myself as well.
Well, that's the brilliant thing about photography and film, is like it does open doors to go and do like the most weird and wonderful things that you'd never think about. Like I once found myself on a boat at like the very top of Scotland, like with all these fishermen, like filming all these fish that they were collecting. It's like, oh, I forgot, like, why am I being paid to do this? This is a weird job, but it pays, you know?
I've had the same feelings. Trying to think where the strangest place was. So, I mean, obviously when I did the urbex, I was in like an abandoned insane asylum, which was, you had to climb through a tunnel underground and then come out through the floorboards. So that was quite a fun experience. And then I got to work away in Canada and America quite a few times, a couple of years, 2018. And I can remember, I went to New York, and I can remember went to this party in New York, and there was a big window, and it was in the Bronx or Queens. When you looked through the window, it was nighttime, and you could see the kind of skyscrapers in the background and the moon behind it, and it looked like a scene from Batman. Yeah. And I just thought, this is completely weird how, like, this little camera in my hand has got me, like, stood here on Halloween. Yeah. It's crazy the places where art can take you sometimes.
Yeah. So where do you see creative jobs going in the future? Because you hear a lot about like AI and technology that are going to sort of take loads of people's jobs away. You hear people say creative jobs are safe, but then you sort of look at like robots now, they're writing poetry and they're making art and things like that. What's your take on it?
I don't know. I think there's always going to be... I guess even if AI did a good job at creating stuff, it just wouldn't have that human touch to it. I think a lot of people would probably just be against it anyway because it's by a robot. But I think there would still be some humanity missing. Like, I've seen some of the AI paintings, and it's kind
they're not great yet.
No, they're not.
Give it 20 years, and who knows?
I mean, it depends, because Elon Musk's on about putting that chip in his head, so maybe it'll be a symbiotic kind of union cyborgs, with computers and ourselves. Maybe it'll be like the Matrix, and we can just kind of download skills into his little chip in the brain, and then we can be better than like the other robots or something.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, I can't draw because my hand control, I've not learnt to develop that. Yeah. But if I had like a robot arm which I could control with this thing in my brain which could draw perfectly, I could just think something and it'd be there. But then would there be any value left in art then if anybody could do that?
Yeah, I don't know. It's I guess because it's just a weird world at the minute. I think in it, like, even. It's just like there's so many forward things, so many futuristic things just on the brink of happening. Like that chip, I was listening to a podcast about that chip, what Elon Musk's putting in the brain, and they reckon it'll be online within 2 years. And he was also saying maybe within 5 years you might not even have to talk to each other because you'll be able to like do it through the chip in your brain. I was like, I don't know if I really want to live in that kind of future.
That's scary. Like, what if you send something by accident? Like, the amount of things people think and don't say, if that's going out electronically, that's...
But also, like, there'll be hackers, and imagine someone hacking into your brain.
Yeah, I mean, you get frustrated when your phone doesn't open properly. Like, if your brain's not opening properly, that's going to send people...
And viruses, that someone could like put a virus and then just put the virus into loads of people's brains.
See, okay, this got dark.
These are the things I think about on a night.
Okay. Well, I guess to come back to what we were saying before, I guess we are already quite enhanced by technology. Like, look at Photoshop, for example. Like, you can make things in like 10 minutes, which would take you hours and hours to draw previously. Yeah. And if you showed that to someone 100 years ago, they'd be like, whoa, they wouldn't get it at all.
I mean, we kind of are already on the brink of being an android, but obviously the tools, the thing's not inside us. It's just a phone, but it's in his pocket, so it's basically with us all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just slow input, isn't it?
It's just it might not be inside us, but it's constantly with us. Like, if someone forgets their phone nowadays, they start having panic attacks. Yeah. Like, even I've noticed that my arm constantly goes like that to my phone, or if I've got a second where I'm not doing anything, I'll just start looking at my phone. So I've actually started trying to create some phone discipline recently. I've started turning it off, putting timers on, so after I've used a certain amount of time on my phone, it then shuts down, so the app's shut down, so I can't use them. But yeah, that's a bit worrying as well, yeah.
Cool, so we're coming up on, we've only got 5 minutes left. Is there anything that I've not asked about which you'd like me to ask about?
I don't think so.
Okay, fairly happy with how it's going?
Yeah.
Okay, next question then. So what's coming up for you in the next few months? Any exciting projects? So as lockdown kind of just got rid of everything?
We did have, I had some kind of exciting projects with my agency, but obviously because of COVID, the things have been, people just getting scared to spend money now. So they're being put back till next year, hopefully in thinking that hopefully COVID will have either gone away or there'll be some sort of vaccine. But yeah, at the moment, it's going to be basically kind of tutorial, so photomanipulation.com. And then I might start a personal series as well. Mm-hmm. Maybe I want to do something what's York based. I'm just trying to find the right angle or the right kind of thing to take photos of.
Okay, cool.
I don't know what it is yet, but I'll find it eventually.
That sounds good. Well, I'm sure if you're looking for collaborators, there'll be lots of people in the York Creatives group.
Yeah. I mean, that's one thing I miss as well, just the human networking.
Yeah.
That's I'm missing that quite a lot, sat in my bedroom, because that's my office now.
Well, one thing we were literally about to launch, we can't obviously do it now because you can't meet anybody. Yeah. But we're thinking the whole idea of large-scale networking events, probably they're not going to come back for a while. But when it was still the rule of 6, you thought you could at least go out and meet 5 other creative people, and you could have like a network of mini networks and then get those groups talking to each other. Good. So we're all ready to launch it until they took away the rule of 6, and then now you can't do it at all. But when it opens up again, we'll be doing that, and it'll be good to get different people mixing with each other.
Yeah, I'll definitely be up for that. Let's just hope they don't extend it.
Yeah. Well, it can't go on forever. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
So if people want to get in touch with you, maybe want to find out a bit more, collaborate with you on a project, what's the best way for them to find out more about you?
Yeah, so they can find me on social media. So it's just Clinton Lofthouse. I don't think anyone else has got that name, so it should be easy to find. And on my website, which is www.clintonlofthouse.photography.com, and then my agency is rebelnorthcreative.com. So they can get me on any of those.
Cool. Well, I can put all the links in the description so people can just click through.
Yeah, cheers. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you.